foreign entanglements that could make him a serious threat to our country's national security. According to the Times, Trump is, quote, personally responsible for loans and other debts totaling $421 million, with most of it coming due within 4 years. And in his first 2 years in the White House, his revenue from abroad totaled $73 million. Those kinds of foreign receipts and the mystery of to whom he owes all that money do little to diminish the theory that Trump could be compromised. And the chapter of compromise that exists in the Senate report about Russia's undue influence is something that our next guest writes about in his new book. Peter Strzok tweeted last night, quote, "This is a roadmap of some of the ways Trump is compromised. In the hands of a hostile intelligence service, these millions of dollars represent coercive leverage over Trump as a result of undisclosed foreign financial deals while he was president." Peter Strzok joins our conversation. He's a former FBI Deputy Assistant Director of Counterintelligence. He's also the author of the new book, Compromise. Frank Figliuzzi remains with us. Peter, I saw your tweet last night, and I clipped it and sent it to my team, and I'm thrilled that you're here to talk to us about it. But this seems like precisely the sort of what animated a lot of the angst about Donald Trump and his ties to Russia, or it would appear other foreign governments. Talk about it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Nicole, thanks for having me here. Part of the concern of any counterintelligence professional is looking for these hidden financial entanglements. And watching and having done that over 6 different administrations, every country, foreign country, is trying to use money to get leverage and influence on any given presidency. But the information in the New York Times report out of those tax records, the breadth and volume of that monetary back and forth is stunning. It's simply unprecedented in any president in modern history. And so if you look at the ways that can be used to as leverage over Trump, you have to think of this first and foremost as a national security issue. Yes, this is a financial issue, but first and foremost, the ways that it can be used to impact the national security of the United States, by the way it can be used against Trump, is unprecedented and is deeply concerning.
You know, Peter Baker said in the last block that the Times tax return data didn't include any new dots connecting back to Russia, but it would seem to make the old ones and the new ones of things that have happened since he's president all the more concerning. Can you talk about if the counterintelligence investigation had proceeded, and there's good reason to believe that it didn't for a host of reasons, what would you have wanted to see?
Well, of course, that's an excellent point. That what we're seeing, what I understand that the New York Times saw, were overt records. These are things used in accounting and in filings with the IRS. What this isn't is anything that's hidden or, intended to remain off the books. And of course, that's the environment where most foreign intelligence services, certainly sophisticated ones, are going to try and operate. So I wouldn't expect to see necessarily, and without getting into any sort of classified detail or ongoing sort of investigative detail, I think it is reasonable to assume that many countries are well capable of placing money into Trump or his interests around him in a way that doesn't show up on the books, that isn't going to show up on a filing with the IRS. And so the absence of that information doesn't surprise me, but that very much is something I would expect to see had that counterintelligence investigation taken place.
You know, Peter, I want to broaden the lens. We talk so much about Russia. It was sort of the beating heart of the Mueller probe and of the early questions about his campaign. Coincidentally or otherwise, 5 of them had done business in Russia. But I want to ask you more broadly about all of the really outside the mainstream foreign policy views he takes, whether it's the slaughter of Jamal Khashoggi, a journalist who lived and worked in Virginia. Donald Trump didn't just defend MBS, he towed the Crown Prince's line. Turkey is something that we've been talking about. John Bolton writes in his book that he was so concerned about U.S. foreign policy vis-a-vis Turkey, he called AG Barr. Same with China. I mean, do you think this is a president just out there shucking and jiving and looking for side hustles?
I do. I think largely many of these decisions are driven by personal business interests. And the most important thing is they're being driven in a way that's hidden. And because they're hidden from the American people, that is precisely what gives these foreign nations leverage over them. So again, that New York Times data, it talks not just about Russia, but it talks about Turkey. It talks about the Philippines. It talks about Azerbaijan. It talks about Dubai. The list goes on and on and on. And the concerning thing is that until yesterday, none of those transactions were known. So each and every one of those hidden transactions, those hidden payments, provide a leverage point for those foreign nations to use over the president and really go a long way to explaining, as you said, some of these just absolutely nonsensical decisions that don't have any benefit to U.S. national security.
I want to make sure I didn't miss this. So you think it is a plausible or at least worthy of further examination to try to connect otherwise inexplicable foreign policy moves that do nothing to advance American foreign policy with his business interests, to try to lay those over and understand if there are side deals or other negotiations between the Trump businesses and those countries?
That's exactly right. And that's the goal of counterintelligence. What the FBI and other U.S. intelligence community agencies are trying to do from a counterintelligence perspective is understand why foreign nations and how those foreign nations are doing what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. So we can clearly lay out why it's in Turkey or Egypt or Saudi Arabia or any number of countries to get actions, policy actions by this administration. And when we see Trump in particular doing those things, again, as you said, from a perspective that makes no sense for U.S. national security, the counterintelligence question becomes, why is he doing that? And now we know that certainly there are any number of financial direct pressure points that could be used to be causing that. That's why you do counterintelligence. That's why you seek to understand these hidden connections, to look at and see where those pressure points are and why decisions are being made the way they are in a manner that otherwise make no sense from the standpoint of U.S. interests.
You know, Frank Figliuzzi, I have a combination of waves of shock and light bulbs going off. I mean, it's such a simple explanation, but I think until we had this tax return data, it wasn't something that could be pinned down. Tell me if you agree that behind every bizarre foreign policy utterance and action that does nothing to advance this country's foreign policy, it's worthwhile of looking to see if there's an intersection with Trump's business interests. And tell me how concerned you are that that could be the case and that there could really be some compromising and compromised positions that the president's taken because of his debt.
Well, look, Pete has previously mentioned that the finances around Trump seem to be and are likely the most prevalent driving factor in any compromise. You and I, Nicole, have talked about the fact that the president has no shame, so therefore videos of him engaging in inappropriate behavior would not bother him in the least. So it's likely the finances if there's a compromise. And look, there are gaps here that we don't know the answer to. When someone is in this much debt, yet Deutsche Bank hands him loans, right? For that no other bank would give a guy that has this kind of debt. We need answers to that. And this is a painful reminder that those answers have not even been pursued by the U.S. government and intelligence community. And I'm going to go a step further here. The counterintelligence concern will not go away if this president doesn't get reelected. Here's what I mean. Ask any corporate security director about the trade secrets in his company. Ask him the threat posed by retirees and people who resign from office, that engineer, that scientist who has the secret formula. Now imagine what a president who needs cash, imagine what he could do to us with a foreign intelligence service, talking about how our nuclear system works, talking about what launch codes look like, talking about where a president goes, where that bunker is, all of the various things that a president is privy to. It doesn't go away when he goes away. And so I would assert that we need these answers and we need the investigation to get opened and continue even if he doesn't get reelected.
I guess I want to end on that. So, Pete, do you think that a counterintelligence investigation, if there isn't one underway now, should be opened into the president and his finances?
Yeah, absolutely. Frank's absolutely right. This is something that doesn't go away, whether or not he's reelected. It is something we need to know, not just what happened in the past, but to protect ourselves going forward, we absolutely have to get to the bottom of understanding what his vulnerabilities are and what exists as we're talking right now.
Peter Strzok and Frank Figliuzzi, both of you guaranteeing I will not sleep tonight. Thank you, though, for your incredibly special and unique expertise. It's a pleasure to get to talk to both of you on a day like this about a story like this. After a break, award-winning actor Jeff Daniels joins us to discuss his new miniseries, The